Hey, here we
Namaste.
go.
Namaste.
Hey, Michael, how's it going?
It's going well. Happy summer. It's
Yeah.
June. June. This is a big month. Lots of things going on in June.
hmm And I am excited because it's the start of the summer season, the start of Black Music Month. It's the start of a lot of stuff. So I'm excited about that. So, hey, let's get going. Welcome, guys, to Talk on Tuesdays. Let's get started right now.
Da-da-da, ba-da, 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 ba-da-da. Hey, happy Tuesday, Val. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing wonderful. I'm having me a good old time over here. It is Talk on Tuesdays, and we are here with a brand new show. We took a little bit of a break for the holiday and the Memorial Day holiday weekend, and we are back. We are back full in effect. That's what I like to say. We're back full in effect, and I'm getting my situation together here. But I had a date over the holiday. I know you're
Yeah,
probably
you
like,
did. No, I saw you
I
were
sure did.
you were
Mhm.
what you were painting and sipping and what was it? What was it?
It was called the Paint and Sip, and that's what
Mm-hmm.
I was doing. And so yeah, so we had a good old time doing that. And so I thought we would just kind of share what we've been doing over the last couple of weeks. And we're back. All the gang is here with Interludes, and Interludes, a pure Lighthouse production, guys. And I'm Val the Voice, and with Mr. Womble. Uh, I got a chance to do this just today, but you did something exciting, and you took your daughter to see The Little Mermaid.
I did. I did.
Mhm.
It's really interesting. So there's been a lot of talk about the movie, about Disney, about representation. I know just recently, Michelle Rodriguez, the star of one of the 10, right? Count them 10
Mhm. Count
Fast
on
and
1, 2, 3,
Furious
4, 5.
movies,
Mhm.
came out with this idea that people of color are taking away white heroes and they shouldn't be doing all of that and they should get their own heroes. And I just, here, here's the thing,
Mhm.
it's The Little Mermaid. It's
I
Disney.
know.
There's
It's Disney.
Ariel. There she is. And I don't know how much science you want to apply to the Little Mermaid of how
Mhm.
mermaids would look and the amount of sunlight that can penetrate the water that would affect their melanin intake. And
Mhm.
it's fantasy. It's
It's
all
it
make
it's
believe.
not. Mhm.
And hey, there we go. Yes, yes, Sister Daniels. Hey. So so this whole idea of people trying to apply science and their own kind of weird ideas about what mermaids look like. Ask an 8-year-old what they thought of the movie, how they experienced it. Ask someone
Mhm.
who loves Disney and loves
Mhm.
these musicals what they thought of it, rather than someone else on the outside. I know the person that I went with the movie liked the movie. It was great. They sang all the songs. You got to
Mhm.
see them move around. The crab, Sebastian, was there. Um,
Mhm.
she, you know, she sang her song. Eric sang his songs, and it was an enjoyable experience. It is what it is. It's not meant to change the world. And I think that people just need to kind of relax. I mean, there are lots of things. I mean, I've read so many articles. You read about her hair, didn't you? That's
Yeah.
$150,000 worth of weave that we looking at right there. Coming out of Holly Bailey's hair. It's beautiful. I even heard people tell me like, well, she's not really brown, she's kind of green. It's like, okay. I mean, what I saw, I enjoy. I saw some of the movie. I saw some of the popcorn container as our
Mhm.
hands emptied it very quickly, and I had to go run and get some more stuff. During the beginning of the movie because I did, and it was all the songs. I liked Melissa McCarthy as Ursula. I love the whole idea. I'm gonna call it the Bridgerterization because I'm making up a word. I love the Bridgerterization of the whole family and the kind of extended people because there were lots of people of color and different
Mhm.
in this compared to what I remember in the cartoon. But Val,
I
you get to see it
remember.
today, right?
Yeah.
This is fresh
Yeah.
in your mind. So you
Yeah.
got fresh fish. If we gonna fry some fish, your fish is freshest. So
I
what
know,
is
I
your
know.
thing?
I have to say that Javier Bardem as the king did a wonderful job,
King Charles.
and I love the young man that played the Prince Eric. I thought he
Yes.
did a great job with singing, and I instantly knew. I think Aquafina did the bird, the squawk, and then David Diggs he did Sebastian, and you know singing the songs and kind of having it some things were done a little bit differently. I'm trying to remember the original from 1989, but that was literally now 3 decades ago, but it was wonderful to see children. There was one young lady that was in, and it almost brought my friend Princess to tears. There's a young lady who had a tutu and it had lights underneath her tutu. And
Yeah.
every time Ariel popped up, she said, "Oh, it's Ariel. Don't go in there, Ariel." You heard the kids kind of cheering and not knowing the story like I remember the story, and seeing Ariel through their eyes. It was just
Mhm.
they light up with this joy of I see a a fish. I see a princess who is beautiful, and so that's the one thing about Bailey. And one thing watched on, I believe it was either Access or one of the other entertainment channels, and they were interviewing Melissa McCarthy,
Mhm.
and she plays Ursula, and she does a wonderful job playing Ursula. But she
Southside.
literally defended the choice of Disney to go with Haley as a choice for Ariel, and she says, there's a lot of people that are saying, negative things about her portrayal of Ariel, but you know what? I'm saying that she's handling everything with grace and
Mhm.
and beauty, and I'm not going to give or acknowledge the haters out there talking about her portraying a fictitious character. Are there real mermaids? No, there aren't. But let us know in the chat, guys, if you have seen. Now, I know people are thinking, why are y'all focusing in on the Little Mermaid? This is a big deal because the sister's playing the Little Mermaid. That's the big deal. But I'm just
It's
gonna
it's
be
also the
100.
biggest movie. I mean, this is the biggest
Mhm,
movie, at least of this week and possibly of the summer. And
mhm,
it has the potential to be because of its rating. It's open to
mhm,
all. This is not filled with, graphic
mm-mm.
violence or
No.
sexual content or anything. This is a kids movie, and it's not just a kids movie. It's a
Mhm.
universal kind of movie. And we don't get a lot of these types of films.
We
And
don't.
to have
Mm-mm.
one and to have the primary character, at least presented uh, with through an African American actress, that's a big deal. I mean, and we
Mhm.
certainly have heard months and months of controversy over Disney's decision to do this and why they shouldn't do it and this and that. And I gotta say, I'm not sure what I was expecting, but it
Mhm.
was fine. Like, I wasn't expecting it to be the greatest film I've ever seen, okay? Like, I thought, like, can the girl sing? Yes, I know the girl can sing, alright?
Mhm.
It what will it look like? What will the underwater kinda sequences look like? And this was
Mhm.
directed, correct me if I'm wrong, this is Rob Marshall, right?
Rob Marshall's a
Yeah,
director,
right,
and
and
he
Rob
was also
Marshall, of course, he did, Chicago.
Chicago.
He's
Mhm.
done a lots of films and lots of musicals, and that's
Mhm.
where I would put this. Now, maybe the original, you might think of, oh, animated Disney. What they did, and everybody, this is no secret, over the years, Disney has been step by step, movie by movie, remaking everything that they've done animated and putting it in a live
Right.
action. Well, I mean,
And
I see what you have on the screen. That's different.
mhm.
I mean, Eddie Murphy originated the his role of Donkey and Shrek.
And the
So
strike. Mhm.
so here you have characters, of course, in the Little Mermaid who were who had different voices
Mhm.
and had right the Caribbean voice, right, Sebastian.
Mhm.
So if you had
And
made a
did you
live action crab, I
and
guess.
and did you know, Samuel E. Wright, who originated the voice for, Sebastian, they
Mhm.
had an issue Disney had an issue with him portraying the crab with a Caribbean accent. He had a real issue with that back in '89,
Well,
and
well,
he literally fought for that, like, "No, if
good.
someone's gonna be in that area, it's gonna be somewhere in the West Indies or somewhere in that regard," but yeah.
Well, and good, and
Mhm,
good, and good on him. And I'm glad that he won that, that discussion because it
mhm,
certainly is key in opening the door to see, the representation that you and I saw in the movie of
mhm,
Eric's adopted family, of the people on the island, and especially not to, especially when we see the vast array of mer people, and when we finally see them, it looks like you and I are of that age. It looks like a Benetton ad. It's like kind of like, oh wow, this is like this is everybody is represented here. I think that's part of what makes the movie universal,
right,
and what has Val the Voice has made it bulletproof against really harsh criticism and
mhm,
just, people trying to take this little film down. And I have no idea why.
mhm.
I've seen some terrible kids movies over the last couple years. Let me tell you, but this isn't one of them.
Well, well, here's the thing. The Little Mermaid is its release. It did about 95 to 98 million here in the States.
Mhm.
Probably
That's
additional
number
100
one,
million.
and that puts it at
Yeah,
one.
it was number 1, that was last week, but it did a 57% dip down to 42,000,000, and I believe it cost anywhere between 180 to 200,000,000 to make The Little Mermaid. The live
Okay.
action, it is live action, a lot of it is animation, a lot of it's green screen. It's beautiful. I was really fascinated with just all of the animation, and definitely just, we knew what Halle had to go through to become the mermaid, but here's the thing, the it's a success because you took a chance on a black actress leading a live action of a Disney classic that has been around for 3 decades. So please, please, please do let's not criticize the actress. Let's not criticize the production. And
I think the production
it,
is fine. I mean,
the production
I wouldn't say
is
she's
wonderful.
not a
It's
great
Disney.
actress. She's not a great actress, but
We're
it's
not,
not a great role.
but here's the thing,
It's not a great
it's a
role.
kids movie. It's a
It's
kids movie.
it's not a great role. It's just okay. It's
Mhm.
really just
Okay.
okay, and
Mhm.
that's good. That's
Mhm.
good enough. And and
Alright.
and and so if you do have kids, let me
Mhm.
recommend I can do that. If you do have kids, especially if you got girls and they are of the Disney ages,
Mhm.
I would encourage you to find some time to see The Little Mermaid in theaters, take it in with the sound, the popcorn, all of that. It's a great experience. You won't regret it.
Right. Yeah. So that's where I'm at. And then also, I'm going to mention this before we bring on Coach. Is it is
Okay.
It's officially Black Music Month in June. I definitely want to
Mhm.
do that. And I just found out earlier that Michael on tomorrow will be talking about this young man, Prince, because we had the advertisement. There you go. I see your shirt. I see your shirt.
Came through.
I had to just come through and at least mention him. But his birthday is tomorrow on the 7th. So hashtag Wamba Wednesdays will be covering Prince. But because I won't necessarily be there, I have to do this.
You got your
So
top
you have to,
5?
yes. And I'm looking
Yes.
at record albums. You see
Yes.
this record album? This is a record album, ladies and gentlemen. You see this record album? You see me? You see me? That's controversy. You see me?
Uh, 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 uh,
Oh my gosh.
uh, uh,
You
uh.
see me? You see me?
Kiss. Mm-mm.
Yes. That is Under the Cherry Moon. Come on. Come on
No.
with it.
Yes, it's Under the Cherry Moon. Yes.
Woo! Yes.
Oh, it's the
I'm
inside of
such a
Under the
fan.
Cherry Moon. You gonna put Christopher Tracy on parade.
Of
Okay,
course
yeah,
I am.
I can
Of
do
course
that.
I am. He
I
needs to
can
keep his
go with
shirt
you.
on, though. I need to do that. He needs to keep his shirt on. But no. And then, of course,
You muted, but that's da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Batman. That's Batman. I recognize that. He throwing up the bat, the black and yellow. That's not Wu Tang. It has to be the bat sign, the bat signal. Val, you still muted. Yeah, so we see it. We see it. What else? What else? I could do vocals. What else? You got one more to throw up? You running down these great prints. Yeah, no, nothing. So yeah, we're running down these great prints. Music. June is Black Music Month, as Val the Voice was saying. There he is, his purpleness. Of course, tomorrow I will, Mr. Womble. I'll be talking about Prince. Hashtag Womble Wednesdays. Tomorrow just happens to be his birthday. His birthday, which fittingly is in June. Maybe that's why June is Black Music Month. I would have said that too. I would have made June Black Music Month too if I knew when Prince's birthday was, which I did. I've known since I was a little boy. I will talk to you more about Prince tomorrow. My love and obsession with Prince is quite deep. Val, we almost heard you. Oh, nope. Coming back. Come on, strong, sister. Hey, sister, talk, sister. Say what you want, sister. Go ahead.
all right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
we
God.
see it. That's Bambi. That's a Bambi picture right there.
Oh
I
yeah, I love the hair. Don't you all love the
Oh,
hair? Oh my
that's the
gosh.
Japanese Bambi pictures, I think, when he had that hair. That was some good hair, boy.
I
Woo!
know. I know. Better hair than some women than I know, but it is what it is. But
Woo! Don't you remember when
Prince,
Oprah went to his closet and she got jealous? Woo! Man, I could you could feel the hate. You could feel the heat coming off of Oprah. She's like, "That's your clothes. That's your closet." He's like, "Yeah." She's like, "And all those clothes are made for you?" Like, "Yeah, they made for me, Oprah." Prince was looking at Oprah like, "One day you'll get there."
terrible. Absolutely
Hey,
terrible.
Goddess, what's up?
I know. Good to
Yeah,
see you, Gardis. Thank you so much for being here. What
yes,
you know what?
June
It's
is
time
Black
to
Music Month for sure.
what was that?
June Black Music Month, and that's why we're
Yeah.
talking about Black music. Why we're talking about Prince, and we'll be featuring. You'll be featuring Black Music Month. People that we should be thinking about, people that we know, people that you don't know, all month, right? ValTheVoice.
Right, right. And that's really exciting. But we have a wonderful interview coming up, and it's time for the coach. Let's go.
And I love that beat,
Hey,
man.
hey,
Just drop that beat.
hey.
Hey, before we get started, you see I got my Tupac shirt on, right?
I see it.
Here we
Yeah,
go.
because most
Hey,
wanted.
hey, but hold on, Val. You know I would be the DJ too, because you and Michael don't understand right there.
He
Oh
That's
still got the
that's
sticker. He
he
still
that's
might
that
got the
just
that's
sticker.
that
hey,
dirty mind. That's
that's
that
dirty
Prince.
mind. That's
That's
that
No,
that
dirty
no, I
dirty
mind.
got
mind.
I got that one
Oh, he
too.
got
So,
dirty
I got that
going on
one
dirty mind.
too.
yeah.
It's fine.
Hey, Val. And what's the jam on it? We're going uptown. Everybody sing. That's the jam.
This was
Come on
before
now.
Jehovah's
There's
Witness.
so many,
I have to cover him up. This was before Jehovah's Witness.
so many songs on there that we cannot play and should not play at all right now. So many songs we
And,
should not play right now. Yes, but
man, listen.
it's all love.
Mhm.
Man, I love it. I'm glad you guys covered. I tell you, Mike and Val, we always talk about a lot of serious topics on the show.
Yeah.
For you guys that are in the earphones of my voice and that can see me, please, if you do nothing else, push that subscribe button tonight, because tonight's show is going to be one of those shows that rock you. We don't get too serious on this show a lot of times, but tonight's guest is going to have you in that realm of thinking a lot on what we do. This gentleman, very good friend of mine, my guy, skilled veteran in the business of basketball. Relationship building is like none other than anyone I can think of. He's presently on the contract with Foursquare and HarperCollins for this book right here called The Black Market. We're going to talk about that. We'll get into that as well. But Mike and Val, this gentleman was responsible for the reconstruction of the Adidas gauntlet. We'll talk about that, which is the AAU circuit where all these kids are playing at. But more importantly, listen to this. As he was a executive and consultant with the two biggest shoe companies out there, Nike and Adidas, he accounted for players like Michael Redd, Tayshaun Prince, Andre Iguodala, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Bosh, Carlos Boozer with the Bulls, Mike, and none other than Chi-Town's finest than Anthony Davis, and that list can go on and on and on. But I just dropped you guys the meat. We're going to bring on my home guy, Mr. Merle Cole. He's going to give you the potatoes, baby.
Welcome,
Let's get it up.
welcome.
All
Woohoo!
right.
Merle, what's good? What's good?
You're still muted, Merle. I see him. Yeah, you got to unmute yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys.
There you go. There you go.
I'm sorry. Tony, how you doing, brother? Val,
Man, I'm good tonight. How you doing tonight?
Good. I'm good.
Man, welcome to the show, the fastest growing sports topic show coming in the country. Of course, you got my girl right here, ValTheVoice, and my man Michael Wednesday Womble on, and of course me, Coach Tony with the sports show, and my guy Merle Code on the show. We're gonna dive into some topics tonight, Merle, that a lot of the parents, a lot of us, I'm glad to have you on tonight because we kind of walk that same path. Dealing with everything. You are a South Carolina kid coming up, family full of athletes, things like that. Let's kind of give the audience a little bit of your background. You're growing up, your dad had an opportunity in South Carolina, was good enough to play at the University of Clemson and wasn't able to do that because of the time he grew up. So he chose to go to North Carolina A&T and start and become a professional. And then years later, as the numbers change, you go to play on to Clemson. How did that make you feel as a young kid with that opportunity that your dad didn't get a chance to do?
Yeah, no, I think certainly growing up in a house where you understand the culture dynamic and the times that my father grew up in, and even prior to my father, my grandfather played in the Negro Leagues. And so having having that historic context in terms of family upbringing is important. You got to know where you come from and who you come from, know where you're going and where you're trying to go. And so I was very fortunate and blessed to have my grandmother ran track at South Carolina State.
Okay.
And played basketball, which is where I think my basketball prowess comes from. My father was a baseball player and ultimately a professional football player. And as I mentioned, my grandfather, a Negro League professional baseball player. So I come from a long line of talent and family athletics, and education are extremely important. And so it was certainly a surreal type of opportunity to be able to attend a school and play for a school that wouldn't allow my father interest because of the color of his skin.
Wow. The interesting part about that is, you were at the cutting edge of the time. You and I, we talk about grassroots, and for those that don't know, the grassroots side of the house is what the shoe companies and Nike, Adidas, Under Armour is kind of deemed now, where the younger kids kind of get their start up, their opportunity to play and do things of that nature. And looking at that, you didn't really have, of course, the AAU wasn't around that time. So how did you develop your skills? Did you get hungry one day and start just developing and working? How did that come about?
Well, so AAU existed in a different format.
Right.
When I grew up, as coming through as a kid, it was really more state related. So each state kind of put their best foot forward, and there was a national tournament where each state, depending on the size of that state, would have one or two teams representing the state.
Right.
So each of those teams would meet in a designated location. I believe 14 and under is my year. In 88, 89 was in Syracuse, New York. And so the best teams out of Indiana, the best teams out of New York, the best teams out of South Carolina. Because we're a small state, we only had one team.
Right.
So the best team, you had a state tournament, and the best team out of the team that wins the state championship, so to speak, from an AAU perspective, then went on to play in the Nationals. That has since evolved into, for those who don't understand kind of how it works, it has now evolved into what's called travel teams. So it's
correct.
Outside your normal, what you would call AAU basketball. It's not AAU basketball. That's a generic term. That's a generic phrase that's used. But AAU basketball is a business entity unto itself. Travel
correct.
team basketball is really housed under each of the shoe company umbrellas, because that's where they are analyzing and recruiting the next level of talent for their particular brands.
Yes, exactly. And I know exactly. I'm a Chicago guy, so at that point, what you said is right. And we was West Side versus the South Side. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the summer, with a couple of North Side guys and what have you, we played what they call the Grade 8. So it'll be two teams from Chicago, two teams from Milwaukee, two teams from Detroit, and two from Indiana, which is usually one from GI, which most people understand is Gary, Indiana, and the other one from Indianapolis. And we would meet for that summer. Those 8 teams would compete. And that's how you knew. And by the time school started, we knew the other side of the city who could play what. And I was part of that few years ago of the demise of AAU, when AAU hit rock bottom in the national scandal that happened. And the Nike and Adidas EYBL and the Adidas Gauntlet was born. And of course, Under Armour came behind that. You've been that executive and on that side of the house. And we're talking about, at that time, it was still small. Now it has grown to be very large. And you, at that time, I think you were the executive with Nike at that particular point, correct?
Yes.
So how did you come from the Nike to the Adidas house?
So, I started at Nike on the consulting side. And then after 13 years, kind of moving through and having some blessing in being in the upward trajectory model, to go from being a consultant to being a rep to being a manager to being a director. So I had some opportunities to step in different levels of the game within the business side, on the footwear side, to understand the difference between the game and the difference between the business. And so I was able to touch the NBA side. That was my first experience in terms of servicing high-profile players, and then basically using my experience as a player to evaluate, and then getting into contract negotiations for endorsement deals, and having high-profile conversations with front office people to know who was going to draft who, why, what markets, and then again that would reflect on the decisions that we would make internally as to who we were going to spend money on because what market they were going to be in. So your New York, your LAs, your Chicago's are your primetime markets. And so when players are going to those markets, you want to make sure you have a foothold because those are going to be the most visible, organizations from a global perspective.
Mike, did you have a question?
Good evening, Mr. Code.
How you doing, Mike?
It's honor, a blessing to have you here with us tonight. I do as Coach Tony. I mean, Coach Tony has, knows so many interesting and wonderful people, and to bring you into our space, we are certainly honored and privileged to have you here. I want to ask you some real basic questions to kind of start off with here. Is there a such thing as how would I put it? Amateur sports. Is there such thing as amateur basketball in America?
The answer is yes, but that is an answer that I will say it stops typically at the middle school level.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
So for me, and again, this is an opinionated.
Well, that's why we're here. We're here to hear your opinion. You are the author of the book. I mean,
and I say that to say it's an opinionated discussion, right?
Okay.
With some experience in terms of what I've dealt with, and it also depends on what you consider amateur. And what is the line to be drawn between amateur and not necessarily professional, but receiving some benefit? What is that, right? Because contextually, these kids that are at the college level are still considered amateur, even though they can sign $1 million NIL deals. Right. So what is really amateur? And
let me preface. Let me back up.
What is your definition of amateur?
Well, let me back up just a bit because I recently, and I know I'm not the only person because it does have to do with the King James. There is his own version of his story and the story of his guys coming up called Shooting Stars on Peacock. And it talks about that case, and it took me. It brought me back because I remember watching the game on ESPN. I remember watching those games against Oak Hill, high school on ESPN. It's like, my goodness, but if you have him and you've got Carmelo, I guess, you're going to have viewers. I get it. But what I didn't remember was the fact, or know at the time, that during the time that he was in high school, that his mom got a Hummer. And they talk about it in the movie. They say that she, took out a loan, got the car, and everybody knew that she would be good for it. Well, of course she would be good for it, right? With the loan on the Hummer. But that was okay. So, Mr. Code, here's my question, because that was okay. That didn't threaten his eligibility. He kept playing. It was the fact, according to the movie, that he receives a jersey from someone else, which could be considered to be a bribe, that throws his whole amateur status off to the point he has to petition to try to play his last game. That to me, sir, is insane. The fact that he's driving around in a Hummer, that's okay. But a Wes Unseld jersey? Throwback.
So
that threatens your amateur status. So that's why I'm asking you: is there a such thing as amateur sports in our country?
Well, again, I think that all is predicated on your definition of amateur, right? And I would say this: when there are folks looking to try to take you down, they're going to find more than one avenue to try to accomplish that mission.
Right.
And when you're a high-profile young black man, as LeBron was, a young black man who was cover of Sports Illustrated, who's the next big thing, you got to understand the media's job is to create some kind of scandal. That's their job. Their job is headlines. Their job is to bring negative light to a young black man who's got a chance to earn monies. They get benefits. There are benefits to them in the media space.
Correct.
For the folks that don't look like us typically, to bring young black men to their knees, whether they be athletes, whether they be in the business world, young black men who have startups, always facing some kind of inquiry because of there's an opportunity for them to surpass those that don't necessarily look like them, right? And so they couldn't get him with the Hummer, so the next thing was the jersey, right? And so had he gone to college, there would have been something else. But because he chose to not go to college, and because he was afforded the opportunity, because at that time the rules allowed him to leave straight from high school and go to college,
right?
Those inquiries ceased because they couldn't
right
find
to the NBA. Yes.
Sure. So again, they were trying. They were unsuccessful because the people around him had covered the tracks enough to know, okay, mom's good on this side, the jerseys. And again, what people also have to realize is state high school rules aren't the same as the NCAA rules.
Exactly.
So because you do something at the high school level doesn't necessarily mean it's illegal at the college level. More things are illegal at the college level than are at the high school level. If that was the case, and I'll give you a real simple example. You all have nieces and nephews. If you gave them a birthday gift in high school, there's nothing wrong with that. If you give them a birthday gift in college, that could be seen as an impermissible benefit.
Right.
Which is ridiculous. But
very much.
They don't want the playing field level. And this NIL thing, luckily, because of what we've gone through, has changed the landscape of the business for these young black men and young black women.
Exactly.
So,
Val, was you going to say something?
Well, I appreciate the tenacity and real honesty of your book, Black Market, An Insider's Journey into the High Stakes of the World of College Basketball. It kind of disturbs me because I know these young men are someone's sons that are literally being used to make millions of dollars for the universities. I found out that one of the top tier college basketball coaches makes somewhere in the millions. So I'm trying to figure out, why is there such a strong black market around black boys playing basketball? Like, what is that? Like, and what inspired you to write this and educate the masses about the reason for writing this book, Black Market? What was your callus for writing it?
So for those that, then I'll answer the latter part first and then go back to the first part of your question. It was a cathartic experience for me in terms of writing the book because I had gone through the legal process. I was indicted for working for Adidas. I worked for Adidas and was asked to submit an invoice for a young man that was on his way to an Adidas sponsored school in Louisville, and I submitted an invoice as I was asked to do because I was a consultant at that time. I wasn't in the building. I wasn't an executive. I was not being paid or insured under the company umbrella. I submitted an invoice as I was asked, and then I had the feds knocking at my door saying I defrauded the University of Louisville. And so I then go through the trial process and not allowed to show the $160 million relationship between Adidas and Louisville, not allowed to show the $190 million relationship between Adidas and Kansas, not allowed to show the $100 million relationship between Miami and Adidas, not allowed to show the $80 million relationship between NC State and Adidas. and I'm being charged with defrauding the same folks that we got hundreds of millions of dollars in relationships, and I'm a consultant. I don't make these decisions. These are decisions that run up the flagpole. And so what ultimately happened was I became the scapegoat from a corporate standpoint and end up doing 5.5 months in federal prison for something that I didn't do. And so that was the rationale and the reason for writing the book, was because I wanted the world to know this is how this business works.
Right.
And no matter what you do to me, I'm gonna speak the truth. It doesn't matter what you do to me. I've built enough relationships in this business. I'm gonna be okay. What I'm not gonna do is not have the public and the folks that look like me and the communities of kids that are coming behind me and the parents to be educated and understand how these young men are exploited and how they need to understand their value and what they need to be aware of as it relates to the business of basketball.
I want to get specific in what you said, because so that people can really understand the question that Val asked and the way that you answered it, because I know you answered it very specifically. You said that you were not able to enter that into the trial, so you were specifically blocked from showing that as evidence. Was that the case?
So any and everything. So what you, and again, and it gets back to more than basketball, right? It gets back to being a black man in America and how the justice system treats us when the truth doesn't matter, because the truth doesn't matter as it relates to us. And so that was a lesson. And again, it was hard for me because my father's a lawyer. My father's a judge, right? And I come from a house where the law mattered. And this was not breaking the law. There were laws and white men who've gone to court and had it thrown out. But when I go, I'm not only indicted, I'm convicted, and it's not right. So,
but the evidence that you had, that you said that you weren't able to use,
there was nothing prevalent in our case as it related to the evidence that we had that was allowed into the courtroom. Nothing.
And there's nothing that it was surprising either. I mean, people know that these universities have these relationships with shoe companies.
Listen,
you weren't revealing something that was unknown, correct?
Mike, listen, when I tell you, I have video, I have audio, because the FBI was wiretapping us. I have phone calls with coaches saying, and if you read the book, I have transcribed the phone calls in the book.
Right.
Hey man, what does it take for us to get this kid? We'll do whatever we got to do. Hey, we got 3 top 50 kids in the past year or two. Thank you for the relationship. None of that's allowed in the courtroom. None of it. Because when you find out money talks and your skin color is the one that's gonna walk.
Right, and that's the case. And Val got a little ahead of us real quick, because I was going to bring that in a minute, because I was going to pull all that together. So she got that question out. What I wanted to go back real quick, because I know you answered that and you were going to go back to tie this in, because I was going to bring that question that Val asked a little later on, because I really want the people that's listening tonight to really understand how this is going, because I've got kids, I got people on the night just looking at this thing, through the eyes of coaches, recruiters, and shoe companies. And go back a little bit, the most recent situation when we talked about the NIL was none other than Nashville's own James Wiseman that went to play for Penn. Sure. And the situation that happened there. And he wasn't able to give a penny no more than a handful of games, because it revealed that the house came up and so forth and so on. So when you look at situations like Bronny, who is worth $12 million right now, right, on NIL, and you look at today's news with Zach Edey going back to Purdue, right, and you look at Oliver Nemois, who just decommitted or just transferred out of UT today, and here's the key part about that: he's now down to West Virginia and Baylor, and West Virginia makes a statement today, and I quote, it says, "West Virginia University Athletics state that today they received a possible commitment from Oliver Nemois because we can find compensation for foreign ball players at the University of West Virginia that other schools cannot." So my question on that, how can they do that, bro, and make this okay? Because now you just did 5.5, 6 months of telling the truth, right? We're talking, and by the way, guys, that's listening to the show tonight, if you're not subscribing, make sure you subscribe. But we talked to my guy, Merle Cole, with the Black Market, and he's done this powerful 6 months. We're talking about pre-pandemic. Now, post-pandemic, when you get out, we got NIL.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Insane.
So it was going on before NIL was allowed. And what happened
Yep.
was a spotlight. So they lost 2 cases. The NCAA lost cases in LA. I
Yep.
believe his name was Sean Austin.
Yep.
Football player from West Virginia, actually University of West Virginia, I believe.
Correct.
And he brought a case against the NCAA, and they lost. The NCAA lost the case. Our case brought visibility and spotlight to the exploitation of these athletes, and again, there was pressure on them to do something. And again, does NIL solve the problem? It does not. It's a Band-Aid over a bullet wound.
Right.
But it does allow some of these young men and young women to earn monies outside of the school from a marketing perspective. My problem with that is, to Val's earlier point, is these schools are billion-dollar entities, and these young men and young women who aren't or superstars aren't receiving NIL monies.
Right.
But they're just as committed and giving their all and giving you their blood, sweat, and tears in their bodies, and they don't get the same opportunities because they're not the face of those programs. These schools should be doing something. Again, it could be something small as each year you complete a season and you are in good academic standing, they got to put $25,000 in your account.
Correct.
So when you leave school, you got a head start on life because you've given them millions and millions of dollars of benefit. And so right now, the NIL again is not an end all be all. It is not the answer. It is a good step.
Okay, great. I have a question from the audience. This is Mark Lee, who's one of the folks that is one of our frequent flyers. He asked you your thought about transfer portals, and then is there enough minority agents in play? What do you say to that?
So I'll start with the agent question first. There are a number of minority agents. The problem is keeping them certified.
Correct.
Playing the game, playing the game, right? So what happens is there's a test that has to be taken, and then there's a fee. There's a fee that's associated with these agents on an annual basis. And I don't know the exact number, so forgive me for speaking a little bit out of school with the numbers. But let's just say the numbers are $2,500 a year, right? To maintain your status. Well, that's not really the issue. What happens to these smaller agencies and young minorities in the business, as a mom and pop shop, they get run out of business. Let me tell you why.
Wow.
But your larger agencies waive the fees on rookie contracts.
Correct. Your CAAs.
So your larger companies will say, okay, in football the max is 3% on contracts. Basketball the max is 4%. And there's certain adjustments that are made sometimes on rookie scale deals. But those larger agencies say, hey, you don't pay us anything. Now, we paid for all your training. We paid for your housing. We paid for whatever we had. We paid for your mom, your girl fly to come see you. We've invested $150,000, $200,000 into you before the draft.
Yep.
And we're not going to charge you in your first year salary. So we've taken a $300,000 or $400,000 hit. Well, no startup company is going to be able to withstand that kind of hit.
Right.
And so it runs minority guys out of the business. It does, unless they join a larger agency. That's the first part. The transfer portal. It is a gift and a curse.
Wow.
It is a gift in the sense that it does give young men and young women a chance to leave school without penalty and start playing immediately somewhere else. That is certainly a gift because they should. If coaches can leave jobs and opportunities and go somewhere else freely, so should these kids. The curse is it is a logjam of kids that are in the portal with nowhere to go.
Correct.
And it's also having a negative impact on high school recruiting because there's so many young high school kids who aren't being recruited because every school is waiting on an experienced player that's leaving an existing college program to join their college program.
Exactly.
So, for instance, I have two young men whose families I'm very close to who are super talented kids. Both of them actually have a chance to be NBA players. They're that talented.
Wow.
But because they were high school students, they were being recruited at this mid-level to low-level D1 caliber because most of the high majors were saying, hey, we're waiting on the transfer. And so now both of those kids are going to go to prep school to give them another chance to kind of reach the levels that they should be playing. So again, it's having, and what you're finding is you'll have close to 1,000 kids who are in the portal who won't have a place to go. They'll end up having to go to a D2 school or a JUCO or trying to walk on somewhere else because they're not welcome back in the programs that they left.
Right. Merle, you and I talked about that all day. We just talked about that this week. That's my world as a JUCO coach.
Right.
We're loving you and I just talked about this earlier this week. And to expand a little bit on that, Mark, to that question, the other piece is that I personally got kids right now because of that portal. And I got high school kids, exactly what Merle said. We can't find any place to go. We're trying. But here's the one bad part about what NIL has done also that Merle didn't mention. The transfer, where we used to be able to have that one free transfer, now the NCAA has gone back in and starting this fall, if you transfer more than once now, you're going to have to sit out a year. So they're bringing that back. And then you got to see, I think, Merle, we were talking earlier this week, you're about to see the resurgence of the JUCO because these kids don't have anywhere to go. So you can see the resurgence of the JUCO, or you're going to see prep schools start to really grow. Now, the problem to the prep schools is, as you and I mentioned as well, when you get the quote unquote the big shoe company money, you sometimes get some fly-by-night prep schools that pop up just to get kids' grades in order, and then next year they don't exist no more. People don't know about that.
To your point, man, if you read the book, I actually had that very experience with a kid who a school was after, and it's a funny story, but it's a sad story at the same time. Like a kid, and this school was willing to pay, and I don't even know how this happens, but the kid was going to a prep school. He missed a whole year of school because he was a rural area kid, just didn't go to school for a whole year. We get his transcript and say, hey, man, what happened to your junior year? I didn't go. What you mean you didn't go? I didn't feel like going. Wow. You didn't feel like going, and nobody called DSS. Nobody said anything. No, because he pushed our kids through the system, right? Yeah. Just to get them out. Well, he can't get into college because he's only got 3 years of high school credits. So this particular school calls somebody and puts him at this school. This boy gets a whole year's worth of classes in 3 months. And he's eligible to go to this Division I school.
So Mr. Code, I want to just kind of reset. We're talking to Merle Code, author of Black Market, an insider's journey into the high stakes world of college basketball. It's a book. It's available to you. If you're not familiar with it, you should check it out. We have the pleasure of talking to Mr. Code now. One of the stories I wanted to get you to tell us a little bit about has to do with a guy that, if you watched any high-level college basketball over the last 10 years and any pro, when he hasn't been hurt, he's been a force in the NBA, and that's Zion Williamson. Can you tell us a little bit about your interaction with Zion Williamson and kind of his story?
Now, that was a crazy story, by the way, Merle. You know that.
But what is crazy, Tony, is it's not crazy. What's crazy about it is that's kind of everyday par for the course as it relates to kids and parents and recruiting in the high level world of basketball.
Right.
And it's no different in the high level world of football.
And he was one of the highest level ranking high school players, and there was a lot of question about where was he going to go. Was he going to go to Clemson? Was he going to go to Duke?
South
And what
Carolina.
happened there? South Carolina. So what happened? What happened with Zion?
No, so again, I met Zion actually on one of his recruiting visits at Clemson because I played there. I had a relationship with the staff, and from time to time, they would invite, my wife and I or some buddies of mine over for a football game just to kind of go hang out. And so we would do that on occasion. And I try not to be one of those guys that played at a school and I'm always hovering around saying what y'all need to be doing. And no, I would go over every blue moon and check it out. And so I went over this particular weekend for a football game, and one of the coaches introduced me to Zion's stepfather. And he kind of said, "Hey, man, you the guy I've been looking for." It's like, really? Why? Right. Why are you looking for me? What did I do?
Right.
No, man, I just know who you are and know what you've done in the business, and I know where you sit in terms of the shoe companies, and I need some help. I need your guidance. I need to know what to do, who to do it with, how to do it. And I said, okay, I'm certainly willing to do whatever I can to help you. And so, again, for me, man, I'm all about trying to help kids that look like us. And I want to see guys and kids that look like us get a chance to leave the situations and circumstances that we've been accustomed to. And if the game can provide them, new direction and upward trajectory in terms of their economic status in life, then so be it. That's what I feel like I've been called to do. And so, long story short, kid was his family had moved up from Marion up to Spartanburg Day, private school, which was about 20 minutes from my home. And I started seeing him on a regular basis, started, watching his stepfather work him out. We go grab lunch, lunch or dinner at the buffets around just to grab something to eat. He's a smart kid, nice kid. Mom, Sharonda, was in school. She was working at Northwood Middle. Lee was kind of, working odd jobs kind of here and there, but they were just kind of getting by. And so went through a whole process of kind of going through AAU, so I say AAU travel team searches in terms of where he was going to play and who's going to be the best fit for him, who's going to give him the most visibility so that he could kind of become a household name from a national perspective. And so we did all of those things. We went through it, put him with a group of guys out of Atlanta that had been accustomed to having high profile guys.
Yep.
Knew those guys really well. And again, the parenting thing kind of got involved where the mom and dad wanted to coach. And then it's like, wait a minute. So then the company stepped in, Adidas stepped in and said, okay, well, we'll do whatever we want to because we want to keep this kid. We want to make sure he's part of our family. And again, that works sometimes and sometimes it doesn't. And again, in Zion's case, it didn't. You spend all these resources on a kid at that level, and then Zion signs a multi-million-dollar Jordan deal.
So, but the stepfather gets a job, right?
The mom got a job at the school.
Mom gets a job.
But the stepfather gets a tie-in with is Adidas, right? Adidas puts him on the payroll, don't they?
So they were getting they had a team deal. So they had a team.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, clean it
right.
up. A team deal.
So they started a team called South Carolina Supreme, I believe was
Supreme. Exactly. We played them in Atlanta. So yeah.
So they were getting monies for the team that the family could then allocate how they saw fit. Let's say it that way.
Correct.
Okay.
So Mike, what you don't understand on that, Mike, on the travel ball side of it, Mike, when you got these shoe companies, as Muriel was saying, like with my program, we walk away from AAU to travel ball. So now you got 3 leagues that's left right now. You got Nike, who controls EYBL. You got Adidas, who at one point control the Adidas Gauntlet. And then, of course, you got the UA, which is the Under Armour with Steph Curry. And these companies, yeah, exactly. These companies get behind you. They give you the money, and you're supposed to put X amount of dollars per whatever age group that you particularly got, and to make sure that happens and all that. The crazy part about the Zion story wasn't even that. The part I like about him, Merle, was that he had a brother that ran track and field who wasn't even D1 material, and they convinced South Carolina to give him a scholarship, and Zion don't even sign there. That's what the best part about it, man. That is like, you know, and you wonder what's going on with that.
You say what's and you know the disheartening part about this is it puts a lot of young brothers who are assistant coaches in the crosshairs because
Correct.
their sole job is to go into black neighborhoods to go get black kids. They
Right.
don't do a whole lot of coaching.
Wow.
They're basically, and I hate to say it this way, man, but the truth is the truth. They're basically field hands. They're going out to service massa by going to get other field hands. They got to go get kids for the coach, and if they don't bring those kind of kids to coach, they don't keep a job.
Correct.
So so that's one of the reasons you don't see a lot of black head coaches because we are viewed as recruiters, not coaches.
Correct.
Wow.
And then the hands are so crazy, Mike and Val, because, you know, again, being in the bottom of this coming up since 2002, 2003, you know, me and Merle crossing paths and running the same thing. At one particular point, everybody in the United States, they went to Florida, Orlando, because that's
Right.
where ASU deemed it at. And then they got rid of that because the NCAA said, wait a minute, we're in Indianapolis. Why are we going to the bottom of the country when the majority
Right.
of the people can get to Indianapolis and get where we got to go? So they will use guys and programs like myself who have good players to reach out to the Merle Coles of the world. So,
Right.
I mean, people right now, if you have not had an opportunity to get this book, The Black Market, by my guy, Merle Cole,
Right.
make sure you put it in the crosswalks. Make sure we
Right.
get it. And Merle, you can tell the people how they can order it.
Yeah, and
Sure,
let me
it's on Amazon and Apple. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, great. Let me go ahead and jump in, and I want to at least swing it because this is happening right now. We're talking basketball, so I just want to know.
Well, absolutely. I mean, and kind of to tie into what both of but Coach Tony and our great guest Merle Cole has been saying, the
Mhm.
team, the Miami Heat, have been coming up with these players who were not the best known players
Duncan
that
Robinson, D3.
our guy from Southside too, Coach Tony, right? 3-pointer. Hit those
Yep.
three pointers at the beginning of game 2 to help tie it up. So Mr. Cole, as you watching the NBA finals, what do you see talent wise in terms of the players there? I mean, are we as fans surprised because these people weren't, they're not coming from the highest universities, or some of the things that you're talking about have happened, so we're surprised to see this level of talent that we're seeing?
Yeah, no, I think that if you listen to it enough, man, it's bad. It's almost getting unnerving how much they're talking about these undrafted guys from Miami. Like, they talk about it too much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. It's really unnerving because, again, they say it every other sentence. Undrafted. Okay, he was undrafted. Does that mean he can't play? No, it's not what it means. If he couldn't play, he wouldn't be on the roster. If he couldn't play, he wouldn't be starting for an NBA team. If he couldn't play, he wouldn't be scoring 19, 20 points in an NBA Finals. Like, stop it. The kid can play, period. And so drafting players is an inexact science, right? It's your best guess based on some facts and some metrics that you'll get it right, and this guy will be able to help your organization.
Right.
A lot of teams don't get it right. That happens. Guys fall through the cracks, and there's so many guys that can play that don't necessarily get an opportunity to play at the NBA level.
Correct.
These guys were the fortunate few, right, that did get an opportunity. But there's so many more guys who could do the same things these guys are doing if given the opportunity. There's a ton of good basketball players around. I am not surprised. I'm happy for those dudes that they've made a mark for themselves. They're in a system that fits their abilities. You have to give Spoelstra a lot of credit for how he's positioned these guys and what they run and the players they surrounded themselves with. So no, I'm not surprised. I think the general public is surprised. But when you watch basketball, as Tony and I do every day, you see a bunch of dudes that can absolutely go, and guys that are in Europe that can go, or in Russia that can go, or playing in South America that can go. These dudes can go. They can play. They just haven't been necessarily afforded the same opportunities that some of these other guys have. So, no, I'm not surprised that they're having successes. The finals are interesting because it's a clash of styles. And so whose style is going to win out is still, yet to be determined. But it's interesting and it's fun to watch because guys that can make plays and shoot the basketball the way Miami does, man, you gotta cheer for guys that play that way.
Right. They do all that stuff like that. Especially,
I do.
And me and Mike go back and forth, bro, because I told him a month ago that Denver was going to win this all.
Right,
I told him that. I already told him. So, but we go and I got it.
Mike, I'm gonna tell you, I've already won 2 dinner bets because I told him Denver was gonna be in the finals. They was like, ain't no way, and I was like, okay.
There you go. I told you.
I didn't deny that. That I wouldn't deny. But are they gonna win the finals? No.
Oh, yeah, they're gonna win this final. They're gonna win this final. But listen, I appreciate and the last comment I'm gonna make on that, Merle, that you said, and Mike, you were correct, and that is, Duncan Robinson, a Division III kid, right, that transfers, gets to the University of Michigan, and you would not think a D3 kid come to the University of Michigan and start over these Power 5 kids, right? Then he's the one out of that entire bench that goes pro. So, and then he goes to Miami and he's contributing. He's not just on the team, but he's on the floor. So, that's the stuff like that.
But what we're learning, and you'll learn it if you read Black Market and Insider's Journey to the High Stakes World of College Basketball by Merle Cole, you'll learn that these players, some of these are the cream of the crop players, but there's so many other players out there that have talent, that have skills. And because we have narrowed it down to say that this is how you do it, and this is how you get in, and this is the path inside, we're missing out on these people. Now, once that widens, I think that's what we're beginning to see, right? We're beginning to see it stretch out just a little bit so we get to see the talent that we're watching.
Mike, you're seeing it at every level, though, because you're seeing, remember, how many guys I want you guys to pay attention to something.
Okay.
Pay attention to how many guys leave small schools and end up at larger schools.
Correct.
During the transfer portal. Pay attention to how many guys leave, let's say, Middle Tennessee and end up at Arkansas, right? Or how many guys leave a D2 school as the leading scorer and end up at a Power 5, a Pac-12, a Big Ten, an ACC. Pay attention to how many of those situations happen. It's happening more frequently.
Yep.
And that's what we should expect in the future.
Exactly right. But listen, I tell you, man, you my guy, baby. I appreciate the time tonight, Merle. I mean, and Mike, just to put one wrap on that, and I know Merle was going to mention it, when you talk about that NIL you mentioned a while ago, because of the NIL, these kids are not leaving college now. They're staying 4 years to make the money. So you're going to see more St. Pete's in the finals. You're going to see more small school D1 mid-majors, FAUs that's going to make it to the final. But, and Kevin, my guy, again, you guys, if you don't have the Black Market by my man, brother Merle Cole, to talk about the business of basketball and sports in general, so it gives you parents an opportunity to understand the business, the players understand the next level and what it's going to take, and overall, then you're sleeping. But Merle, I appreciate the time tonight. ValTheVoice and Mike Wummel does as well. Man, I appreciate it.
Before I go, I want to ask y'all a question before I go.
Yes, sir.
Who did the song Shh better, Tevin Campbell or Prince?
Come on, man.
Seriously? You're going to do that? Oh, okay.
Hey,
I heard the comments before.
Right now, we're going to do that? We're going to do this?
Right here, man. You already know.
Seriously? We're going to do this? Seriously?
No, I just.
Hey, Merle. Mike gonna dive in all that tomorrow night on Wumble Win, man.
Merle, thank you so much.
Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you so much for coming, and please come back. Thank you so very much, Merle. We'll see you.
Tony, call me, man. I'll do whatever I can.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coach.
Man, I told you.
I know. So let me do this. There is a podcast coming, another visual podcast coming called The Pull Up, and it will #1 feature If you like what you saw and what you heard here on Talk on Tuesdays, the coach will have his own situation called the Pull Up Podcast.
And,
And
and,
he will,
and, and, and the night that I give it up, I'm going to come on and we're going to talk to Val the Voice and Mike Womble. And I'm going to be the guest that night. We're going to talk about the pull up and what it's going to be about with my sidekick, my roadie, Womble. And we'll be seeing a lot of him on the pull up. And then we're going to talk about the Rise NIL. As you guys got an opportunity here, Brother Mel Cole tonight, really talk about it. So if you're a parent that's on this podcast tonight, or uncle or auntie, and you got a tennis player, a volleyball player, basketball, baseball, that's in the high school level, I would advise for you to do one thing. That is look at your state rules to see if your child has the ability to sign or at the college they're going to be in position to make money in this NIL. And we're going to continue this discussion. But in the meanwhile, Val the Voice and Mr. Womble, y'all like family, baby, but you know my words, right?
no, I think we know your words. What's your words, Coach?
My words is, and I'm out.
Oh my gosh, Mr. Coach Tony, he's out of here. Oh my goodness, we're so appreciative. Wow, the phenomenal guest. That is the coach. We missed the coach, right?
Oh yeah, Coach Tony, that was good. Yeah, we missed it last week. Wow.
Oh, and people are saying hello toward the end. We had Chris come in and say hello. And thank you so very
Yeah.
much. Is he? Oh wait, Mark wants to know: is he ready to be on Pod TV? Okay, good. All right, we're excited about that. Okay, all of that.
Yeah, pull up.
So,
Yeah.
so when people pull up to your situation on tomorrow,
Yeah.
what will you be talking about, Mr. Womble?
We'll be talking about
Mhm.
the birthday boy tomorrow, and the birthday boy tomorrow is Prince.
It
So
would,
we're gonna talk about
mhm.
Mr. Prince Roger Nelson, music, and how I got involved in this wonderful enterprise called Interludes. So I'm gonna be talking about that tomorrow, and I'll be getting you some news tomorrow as to how things move as we go forward. So we're talking about that
Okay.
tomorrow for hashtag Womble Wednesdays. It's been a
Mhm.
pleasure. We had a great show, and if you
Mhm.
missed any of our show, you know where our platforms are. Tomorrow you'll see me hashtag Womble Wednesday. Join me there. Hopefully our special guest will be our special guest tomorrow.
I'll be there. I'll
All
be there.
right, all right.
I'm there.
Pull through,
I'll
pull up.
pull up. I'll pull up. Cause I think I got more record album covers I gotta go through. Where's the other one? I
Okay,
got another
right,
one.
right. So
There it is.
we'll talk about some of that. Certainly my favorite musical artist and artist period. Prince, so influential still to this day. So we'll do that hashtag Womble Wednesdays. And Talk on Tuesdays, right? On Point Design, they help you from manuscript to finished book to make sure everything is on
On
point.
point.
That's right. And you get my girl Natalie at
Natalie. Go
Natalie at
Natalie.
onpointbookdesign.com. You can call at 443-691-1386.
Oh my gosh.
Val
Well,
the
thank you.
voice. You ready?
I'm ready. I'm
All
ready. And
right.
we're coming up on 3 years. And what's your name, Mr. Womble?
My name is not Val the Voice Johnson, but yours is. And this has been Interludes Extra, Talk on a Tuesday with Val the Voice Johnson.
All right,
All
guys.
right.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. And we'll talk. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Hashtag Womble Wednesday. And we're out. Peace.